Masachet Batra Daf Kuf Nun, starting from Kuf Mem Teram Uvet from the top. Shir Karka Kosho Matanokim, the dying person signed away all his property. We said his gift stands even if he recovers because he tried to give. He kept something for himself, which means that it wasn't a dying gift because he kept something for himself. The Gemara says, "Bekama kosher." What does it mean? A little bit, any amount. Kosher means any amount. Any size means the minimum amount to sustain him. But because that shows that he was trying to live. Rabbi says, movable objects enough to sustain him. How precise are the rabbi's teachings? What's the reason why leaving a portion of land enough to sustain you is you're keeping it the gift goes through even if he recovers the because he must be that he had an intention that if he recover he would use it. So the moving objects if he recovers as well he can rely on it. The Gemara says, well, not keep a bit of what do you mean? What do you mean precise? According to Rabbi who said that referring to moving objects doesn't make sense. Mishnah specifically had land. One person you hold that land refers to enough to last him. Mishnah said any amount. So I'm like I did opinions. Gemara said every time it says land, karka dafka means land, nothing else. What's the problem? Mishnah says if someone writes all his possessions to his slave, the guy goes free because he is considered one of the possessions. The guy said, I'm leaving any except for a piece of land. The guy doesn't go free because he's considered part of the land. Now, Rabbi Shimon says, is always free. Until the guy says, everything should be given to my servant, except for 1/10,000th, which is referring to the slave who saved himself, so the guy gets nothing. Now, let's say the guy said, Hamim considers that in regarding to a slave, it's considered a movable object. But movable objects are not considered withheld in regarding to the lien from a ketubah if you were just something for his wife. We see from here that in this Mishnah regarding an Avid, that land can mean even something that's movable object like a slave. So what's the problem? Where it says over there, it makes sense that he should not mention land. But what's the problem? Why does this mention land if it wasn't meant actual land? It's because the first part of the Mishnah said Rabbi Akiva Merakaka Koshu Hayav Pe'al Bikurim, any type of land, any land of any size is Hayav and Pe'an Bikurim, the top on him Prizbol, you have to write Prizbol on it. You can acquire movable objects with it because of the Bishtab Hazaka. Therefore, in the second part of the Mishnah, we also mentioned land, even though it's Lav Davka, it can even mean movable object. However, our Mishnah regarding a dying person, there's no reason to write land, and therefore we have to assume that it meant land and not movable objects. Okay. Next question. Whenever it says koshu, which means any amount. Let shiura, there's no minimum amount. But Mishnah says that just five sheep, and you're shearing at least a mana and a half of fleece for the first time. However, I guess you have to pay the donate them as part of the first fleece. Bet Hamikdash. Similar to like bikurim. But say five sheep that are short that you're cutting off any amount. No minimum. The Gemara says, what is the minimum? A paras and a half of fleece combined, as long as it's a fifth of the amount that I mentioned earlier, which means it's each sheep has to have 20% of a maneh and a half. So we see there is a minimum. So what do you mean kosher means nothing? The Gemara says any amount. The Gemara says, over there, it shouldn't have mentioned minimum. And since the first Tanakama mentioned a large amount of fleece, therefore he spent a minute amount. Kosher, and that's why it's considered kosher, because even though it's not minimal, even though it doesn't mean any amount, it means minimal amount compared to the big amount. However, our Mishnah, there's no reason to say kosher, which means any amount. So it must be that it means any amount at all. Gemara says, so now if a dying guy says, I'm giving my mobile objects to so and so, he also acquires the utensils that are being used. All movable objects and the utensils are included except for wheat and barley because that's not considered movable objects. All my movable objects to my friend, even that's the wheat and barley is included. You're not gonna even the upper millstone, even though it's only sometimes removed, it's considered a movable object. But the lower millstone, which is not usually moved, that is not included. However, cold metal, anything that it is moved should be given away. Even the lower millstone is removed because it is sometimes moved. Regarding Evid, is a slave regarding considered land or movable objects. So is he include this or not? The Gemara says, must be proof. You're someone selling a city. must be nice. He has all the houses, the pits, the ditches, and the all types of vaults and the bathhouses, the irrigation and the olive presses. That doesn't sell movable objects. However, he mentioned everything is included. I feel even if it's animals or slaves, everything is sold. So we see from here. Yeah, it makes sense to say that Eved is like a movable object. That's why Mishum Achilom is the Risha. That's why in the first case he was not sold if he just said, "I'm selling you the field, the city." If it's considered land, Amaylam is why was he not sold if he sold the land of the city in the first case? Where it says he must be considered movable objects. My afilu. So what's the point of what's the hidush of the Mishnah saying afilu? You don't need to say even the slaves. Gemara says it should be considered automatically. Why are you saying even slaves? Sounds like it's a hidush. Must be that there's a distinction. It must be the difference between movable objects that move and don't move, i.e., animals and slaves. Therefore, if you want to say that maybe a slave is considered like land, there must be a difference and a distinction between land that moves and the land does not move, and therefore we are not sure still what is considered. Okay. Someone writes his possessions to the slave. And the guy goes through Shekha. If he leaves any man of land for himself, doesn't go out because it must be that he's excluding the slave. Rabbi Shimon says, always free. We mentioned before. If he says all my possessions are given to my slave except for 1 in 10,000th of my property, he's excluding his slave in that case. So Amar the Hachamim considered a slave a movable object. But it's not considered a movable object in regarding to a ketubah lien. A is considered a movable object, and therefore it's only considered a lien movable object in that regard for the lien. The Isha Mekarko and the Ketubah of the woman is on the husband's land. And the movable object that's being given is not going to take away from the lien of the husband's Ketubah. Amarle, so we see that we brought all that to show, seemingly, that it's considered a movable object. Or it says no, Amarle, Ana Mishum de Lav Kirut Gita Matitla. In that case, the reason why the guy doesn't go free is because it's not a clear cut cutoff, right? We had same concept in Masech Kedushin regarding the get of a lady. Similar concept. They have to have a get that cuts him off. Over here, since it's not a clear cut get, it's not an automatic removal. Okay. Right? There's 5 things that a person's gift only works if he says all of it should go. A blind person, Abdul, his slave, Ishto, his wife, Ubanav, his sons, Mevrechet, and a woman who is trying to protect her property. What does it mean? The time we have Mishnah, famous Mishnah of a dying person, dying person gave away all his property. Others, left himself some property. The gift stands even if he recovers. If he did not lend himself any land, and it did not stand if he recovers because he was obviously trying to give everything away because he was dying. And if he recovers, he gets it back. In the case of the Eved, someone's writing all his possessions as a slave. The guy goes free. If he leaves anything behind, doesn't go free because he's excluding the slave. Ishto, the Marav Shmuel. Famous case, someone's writing away all his possessions to his wife. Lo asa she's only making her a boss, the admin of the property, and not actually giving it to her. By now, the Tanan case of the sons. Someone's writing possessions all to the sons. Leaves a part of any land to his wife, any sides. She now forfeits her right for the ketubah properties given to the sons by accepting this piece of land instead. What's the case with the lady? Is a woman who wants to protect her assets from before when she gets married to a different husband. It's like a prenup or like putting it in escrow. She has to write away all her property from her future husband and give it to a third property for protection. Amen.